150 years ago to the tribal customary law of all. Accordingly, their land tenure is of a mixed character, and private property in land exists side by side with communal possession. Still, the basis of their present organization is the village community, the tadort, which usually consists of several joint families (karubas), claiming a community of origin as well as of smaller families of strangers. Several villages are grouped into clans or tribes (or). Several tribes make the confederation (zakebil), and several confederations may occasionally enter into a league, chiefly for purposes of armed defense. The Kabyles know no authority whatever besides that of the Jema or folkmark of the village community. All men of age take part in it in the open air or in a special building provided with stone seats, and the decisions of the Jema are evidently taken at unanimity. That is, the discussions continue until all present agree to accept or to submit to some decision. There being no authority in a village community to impose a decision, this system has been practiced by mankind wherever there have been village communities, and it is practiced still wherever they continue to exist, that is, by several 100 million men all over the world. The Jema nominates its executive, the elder, the scribe, and the treasurer. It assesses its own taxes, and it manages the repartition of the common lands, as well as all kinds of works of public utility. A great deal of work is done in common. The roads, the mosques, the fountains, the irrigation canals, the towers erected for protection from robbers, the fences, and so on, are built by the village community, while the high roads, the larger mosques, and the great market-places are the work of the tribe. Many traces of common culture continue to exist, and the houses continue to be built by or with the aid of all men and women of the village. Altogether, the aids are of daily occurrence and are continually called in for the cultivation of the fields, for harvesting, and so on. As to the skilled work, each community has its blacksmith, who enjoys his part of the communal land and works for the community. When the tilling season approaches, he visits every house and repairs the tools and the ploughs without expecting any pay, while the making of new ploughs is considered as a pious work which can by no means be recompensed in money or by any form of salary. As the Kabyles already have private property, they evidently have both rich and poor among them, but like all people who closely live together and know how poverty begins, they consider it as an accident which may visit everyone. "Don't say that you will never wear the beggar's bag, nor go to prison," is a proverb of the Russian peasants. The Kabyles practice it, and no difference can be detected in the external behavior between rich and poor. When the poor convokes an aid, the rich man works in his field, just as the poor man does it reciprocally in his turn. To convoke an aid or be some kind of meal must be offered to the community. I am told by a Caucasian friend that in Georgia, when the poor man wants an aid, he borrows from the rich man a sheep or two to prepare the meal, and the community bring in addition to their work so many provisions that he may repay the debt. A similar habit exists with the Moldovians. Moreover, the Jemas set aside certain gardens and fields, sometimes cultivated in common, for the use of the poorest members. Many like customs continue to exist. As the poorer families would not be able to buy meat, meat is regularly bought with the money of the fines, or the gifts to the Jema, or the payments for the use of the communal olive oil basins, and it is distributed in equal parts among those who cannot afford buying meat themselves. And when a sheep or a bullock is killed by a family for its own use on a day which is not a market day, the fact is announced in the streets by the village crier, in order that sick people and pregnant women may take of it what they want. Mutual support permeates the life of the Kabyles, and if one of them during a journey abroad meets with another Kabyle in need, he is bound to come to his aid, even at the risk of his own fortune and life. If this has not been done, the Jema of the man who has suffered from such neglect may lodge a complaint, and the Jema of the selfish man will at once make good the loss. We thus come across a custom which is familiar to the students of the medieval merchant guilds. Every stranger who enters a Kabyle village has right to housing in the winter, and his horses can always graze on the communal lands for 24 hours. But in case of need he can reckon upon an almost unlimited support. Thus, during the famine of 1867-68, the Kabyles received and fed everyone who sought refuge in the villages, without distinction of origin. In the district of Dilis, no less than 12,000 people who came from all parts of Algeria and even from Morocco were fed in this way. While people died from starvation all over Algeria, there was not one single case of death due to viscose on Kabylian soil. The Jemas, depriving themselves of necessaries, organized relief without ever asking any aid from the government or uttering the slightest complaint. They considered it as a natural duty, and while among the European settlers all kinds of police measures were taken to prevent thefts and disorder resulting from such an influx of strangers, nothing of the kind was required on the Kabyles' territory. The Jemas needed neither aid nor protection from without. Hanuto et le Tourneux, La Kabylie, 2nd, 58. The same respect to strangers is the rule with the Mongols. The Mongol who has refused his roof to a stranger pays the full blood compensation if the stranger has suffered therefrom. Bastien, their mens in their Geskich, 3rd, 231. I can only cursorily mention two other most interesting features of Kabyle life, namely the anaya or protection granted to wells, canals, mosques, marketplaces, some roads, and so on, in case of war, and the kofs. In the anaya we have a series of institutions, both for diminishing the evils of war and for preventing conflicts. Thus the marketplace is anaya, especially if it stands on a frontier and brings Kabyles and strangers together. No one dares disturb peace in the market, and if a disturbance arises, it is quelled at once by the strangers who have gathered in the market town. The road upon which the women go from the village to the fountain also is anaya in case of war, and so on. As to the kof, it is a widely spread form of association, having some characters of a medieval Burgschaften or Gegilden, as well as of societies both for mutual protection and for various purposes, intellectual, political, and emotional, which cannot be satisfied by the territorial organization of the village, the clan, and the confederation. The kof knows no territorial limits. It recruits its members in various villages, even among strangers, and it protects them in all possible eventualities of life. Altogether, it is an attempt at supplementing the territorial grouping by an extraterritorial grouping intended to give an expression to mutual affinities of all kinds across the frontiers, the free international association of individual tastes and ideas, which we consider as one of the best features of our own life, has thus its origin in barbarian antiquity. The mountaineers of Caucasia offer another extremely instructive field for illustrations of the same kind, in studying the present customs of the Ossetes, their joint families and communes, and their judiciary conceptions. Professor Kovalevsky, in a remarkable work on modern custom and ancient law, was enabled step by step to trace the similar dispositions of the old barbarian codes, and even to study the origins of feudalism. With other Caucasian stems, we occasionally catch a glimpse into the origin of the village community, in those cases where it was not tribal but originated from a voluntary union between families of distinct origin. Such was recently the case with some cave Saw villages, the inhabitants of which took the oath of community and fraternity. And Kudadov notes on the cave Saws in Zapyski of the Caucasian Geographical Society, 14th, 1 Tiflis, 1890, page 68. They also took the oath of not marrying girls from their own union, thus displaying a remarkable return to the old Gentile rules. In another part of Caucasus, Dagestan, we see the growth of feudal relations between two tribes, both maintaining at the same time their village communities, and even traces of the Gentile classes, and thus giving a living illustration of the forms taken by the conquest of Italian Gaul by the Barbarians. The victorious race, the Lesgines, who has conquered several Georgian and Tartar villages in the Zakatali district, did not bring them under the dominion of separate families. They constituted a feudal clan which now includes 12,000 households in 3 villages, owns in common no less than 20 Georgian and Tartar villages. The conquerors divided their own land among their clans, and the clans divided it in equal parts among the families, but they did not interfere with the Jemas of their tributaries, which they still practice the habit mentioned by Julius Caesar, namely the Jema decides each year which part of the communal territory must be cultivated, and this land is divided into as many parts as there are families, and the parts are distributed by lot. It is worthy of note that although proletarians are of common occurrence among the Lesgines, who live under a system of private property in land and common ownership of serfs, DM Bakrats Notes on the Zakatali district in same Zapisky, 14th 1, page 264. The joint theme is as common among the Lezgins as it is among the Ossets. They are rare among the Georgian serfs who continue to hold their land in common. As to the customary law of the Caucasian mountaineers, it is much the same as that of the Longobards or Salic Franks, and several of its dispositions explain a good deal the judicial procedure of the barbarians of old. Being of a very impressionable character, they do their best to prevent quarrels from taking a fatal issue. So with the cave swords, the swords of